This is Pat Ennis, Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness podcast. I'm here with co-host Walter Dial. Our mission here on the podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building transferable or sellable business value, and then for planning your eventual exit from the business. We want to help you build a business that's transferable and then exit successfully. Building transferable value or sellable business value that can be passed on during a third party sale or an internal transfer, perhaps to key employees or children, maybe an ESOP, requires creating a business that can thrive independently of its owner. And it includes having in place value drivers such as strong financial performance, cash flow, a next level management team. It should be a scalable business model, strong systems, processes, and also established core values, a mission, clear mission and vision, strategic goals, and accountability throughout the organization to make it all happen. And there are not a few management systems that you could put in place to make all this happen as an owner of a business. And one that's proven to be very effective is the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS. You've probably heard of it. You might be doing it, or at least maybe you've heard of the book and read the book Traction by Gino Wickman. Well, today we're gonna hear from a business owner, friend of ours, strategic partner who exited for maximum value. He's exited more than once. And EOS was key for that success. And that's what we're going to talk about. Today's topic: how EOS helped me sell my business for max value. And our guest is friend and strategic partner, Dave Lokos. Dave is the founder of ExitWell. As he exited, now he's founded ExitWell, an advisory firm specializing in exit planning strategy and sell-side advisory for small to mid-market business owners. He's certified exit planning advisor with over 30 years of executive and entrepreneurial leadership, and he does what we do. He helps owners grow, protect, and maximize business value while preparing for their successful transition. And he draws from firsthand experience, proven methodologies like the one we're going to talk about today, and he can guide clients through their strategic exits that align business, personal, and financial goals. So, Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Pat. I really appreciate having the opportunity to be here and look forward to sharing some of my experience.
Hey Dave, thanks for being here. I'll get us started. I like to, kind of put myself in the place of one of our business owner listeners. So here's how I'm going to open this. So, I'm a business owner, want to sell my business. I've heard of EOS, you know, I Google it. It could either be like esophageal cancer or it's this crazy um, business system. And I looked at one of the companies that provide this, and on their website it says providing timeless concepts of proven tools for getting more out of what you want for your business. So that sounds great, but from a practical standpoint, what does that really mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I will say that the EOS framework, what it does that I think other systems and uh, frameworks that are out there, it does a fantastic job from an entrepreneurial perspective simplifying what are these timeless concepts in a way that you can really touch and feel, and it makes sense to an entrepreneur, uh, and it makes sense in a way that you know uh, reading a very academic book on the same kinds of concepts just really, for me, who I like to move at 150 miles an hour in my business, it's really hard for that kind of information to resonate with me. And so EOS really presents itself in a way that's just easy to sink your teeth into, and have a real impact as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So Dave, let's go back to the business you exited. Um, how many years did you own it? What type of business was it? And at what point did you recognize you needed something like EOS to help you maximize the value?
Yeah, so well, I guess I'll focus on the last business that I exited, yeah, which actually was only in July. So it's only been a little while since I have exited that business, and I was coming off of in 2023. I had built and sold another business in 2023 where we had installed. That was my first exposure to EOS, and these businesses were very different. One was more of a manufacturing type of company, and the other one was a software company. So completely different companies, and having gone through the experience I did in the previous company, it was a no-brainer around shortly after I started implementing it there to talk to my partners in this last company, and one of them who was it was an interesting journey. 'Cause he's a little skeptical. It's like, oh, this is just another one of those things you get all excited about,
Another
and
another
you go.
shiny object.
Yes, and you go back to doing the way you've always done it, 6 months later, right?
Mhm.
And, you talk to him today, and obviously he went through this exit with me, and he is one of the hugest advocates for the system because he kinda went from, skeptic to ardent believer after seeing what it did for the company.
Yeah. So then, how did you? Like I mentioned at the outset, there are a number of different systems. How did you land on this one?
Yeah, so I've been familiar with other frameworks, been exposed to them in the past. I guess first and foremost, EOS was recommended by a friend and colleague, fellow business owner, and this was back in 2019. He was very excited about it. He had been starting to implement it in his company, and seeing results within just a 2 to 3 month time frame. So that meant a lot to me because I really respected him. Um, but I knew there was other systems out there like emyth, scaling up, four disciplines of execution, and other types of tools like OKRs and things like that. But none of them really I felt fit very well, and EOS really made the most sense, and it was the most holistic approach to improving all areas of the company, not just certain pain points.
Did you face any challenges as you started to implement it?
I'd
Well,
love
yeah,
to.
you mentioned that one guy
Yeah,
who he wasn't real excited about the prospect of it. What So that was a challenge, and
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'd love to say I face no challenges, but if certainly buy-in from your team is really important. So it's a challenge that you have to address. But if I really am honest when I look back at it, the biggest challenge really was me, and it was really um, anything you go embark on like this is going to require a lot of discipline, learning and understanding. In this case, the entire framework and how all the pieces integrate and fit with each other, and like we just talked about, getting buy-in from your team. So any areas that I was weak at as a leader or a manager really led to the biggest challenges. But I also had the opportunity through the process for those things to really be exposed and to learn from them and improve my own skills in those areas.
Dave, did you have someone helping you walk through the process, or how'd you implement things?
No. I didn't have anybody helping me through the process, and in fact, that's one thing I would do a little differently today. I had the you know I, I I had the luxury of being able to be the integrator, if you will, and the implementer. And I had that luxury because already had a pretty well established leadership team, and that really gave me the bandwidth to dive in, learn the system, and subsequently implement it. But I would say, as you know, it went well relatively. But if I had to do over again, I would have solicited help of a experienced advisor to at least, at a minimum, help steer me through it. Even if I was doing the integration or in implementation myself, it would have probably saved me, some amount of pain to be able to lean on somebody that was a little more experienced with it.
Yeah, and I think, one thing Pat and I have seen, even just in the general exit planning process, is that, a lot of things intellectually you can kind of figure out, you know, but there are times when things aren't going well that you need encouragement. There may be little things that maybe another voice can help you straighten out. And then there's just the whole, keeping on track. And it's really hard when you don't have an outside force kind of helping you. That's been our experience with the exit planning process.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and that gets kind of back into some of the challenges and keeping momentum up, and as you're going through this process, you know, as with any business, new issues come up, potential crises come up. The tyranny of the urgent, and you get sucked back into, very easily can slip back into old habits. And I think it would have been helpful and would have saved some pain in those areas. Although ultimately we learned that, hey, sticking to the system and the framework really ultimately led to the best results. But I think using an outside advisor would have helped accelerate that time frame and get us to a better place quicker than we did on our own. I guess um, the other thing that can happen, just I was thinking of pain points through the process, and I was thinking what the system helps you work on is your entire structure of your organization. So even if you're a 5-person organization, you know what are the different what are the different roles, what are the different responsibilities, and really getting clear and a lot of clarity on that, because in a small business it can be very muddy, and that muddiness ultimately can lead to a lot of can lead to some resentment, can lead to frustration. And we kind of took on the rule that, hey, if more than one person is ultimately responsible for this particular thing, then nobody's responsible. And so they help you. The framework helps you really uh, dial in on that, and you get a lot more clarity, and people have a lot more clarity in their roles, and that makes the whole environment more enjoyable to work in. But what goes along with that is that you also um, end up seeing, because it becomes blaringly apparent, that there are times where you see you don't have the person in the right seat. You have the wrong person in a position, and maybe they're still a good employee, and they have a lot of great um, things to offer, but not in the role that you've got them in now. And so all those things together, I think working with an advisor, an outside advisor, would have really been a benefit to smooth out that kind of roughness.
Yeah, so something a drill down question on that. It pertains to something you said a few minutes ago. A lot of the businesses we work with, as you know, are founder led. Um, guys and gals who are at least Gen X and maybe baby boomers. They've been business owners for a while. They've got their established patterns, their established ways of doing things. They are who they are. They're usually good at sales and driving driving things, revenue, and everything else. What characterizes this role of an effective integrator of EOS? And does that skill set match up well with your typical founder owner? You understand the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the wishy-washy answer is it depends, because it really depends on the core strengths of the owner. If the owner is much more stronger on the operation side, if kind of they are the COO and that's what they really love to do, then there's probably a good chance they can successfully be the integrator, not necessarily the implementer, but the integrator. So in the EOS model, um, you kind of look at leader in a couple of different ways, either a visionary or an integrator. And the visionary you can think of typically as more of the CEO, the face, the guy that really has, or the woman that really has a vision for the company, and maybe the top salesperson in a company very often in a small company, where the integrator is really making the day-to-day company run well. So if you're an owner and you have more of a passion for the vision, which I think most owners do that I talk to, they would rather not get tied down in the day to day nitty gritty and holding people accountable and all these other things that that are just not always naturally fun for us. They're the harder things, I think, and so that's where I would kind of divide the line, is if you lean more towards operations and you really are passionate about that, then you probably be successful as an integrator. But if you're really lean more on the vision of the company and that side of things, then you're going to be miserable as an integrator.
Yeah, because we've had clients or potential clients who have got all amped up, jazzed up about implementing EOS, and they get into it, and momentum just you know kind of dies, and they're the one that's trying to implement it and to integrate it oftentimes, and it just fizzles a lot of times. And so it's in those cases where someone from the outside or identifying someone in your organization, right, who has that skill set, who could be the champion and lead it.
Absolutely, yeah, that's always another option. And I think that just depends on, yeah, it depends on the makeup of the leadership team and the people that you have and the skills that they have, and there's also a place for a sometimes there's a transitionary period where you do bring somebody else in, even though you don't want them ultimately to be, you don't want them there permanently. You want them there to help get somebody else up to speed. And that that requires a lot of uh, coaching and showing somebody the way, and then handing it off to them, and they can do it themselves.
Okay, so the accelerating the value of the business. Yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. So let's start with three things. Three ways in which you believe and have conviction about that EOS did indeed help you to get a higher multiple when you went to the deal table than if you hadn't had it in place. Let's start with three things.
Sure, and just to back up, as I respond to this, when I first decided to implement, I wasn't thinking about really value and sellability. I was thinking about my original implementation was, I got pain in these areas. There's got to be something I can do to make the company run better. Now down the road, I saw that, hey, not only did it help the company run better, but yeah, it along with that, it increases the value and the sellability of it. So um, on that point, on the value increase, one area uh, is the system brings with it this idea that everybody has a number. And this is nothing new. This is production or operational management, where you essentially, some systems call it a leadership dashboard. Other, in EOS, they call it a scorecard. And that scorecard, um, at the leadership level, may be made up of all the metrics that are essential in terms of communicating the health of the business at any given moment. And but beyond that, you cascade that down to all levels in the company. And in my role, what if I am if I'm a customer service person, we're going to figure out how do I know I'm doing a good job? What does that look like? And I'm going to grade. I'm going to grade that every week and see how I'm doing. And you know, my previous business that I had sold in 2023 was, like I said, it had to do with manufacturing. So there was a production component. And how fast is this person running this machine? How many pieces per hour are they getting out? How come they're getting 5,000, this other person's only getting 3,000? So without any measurement, nobody, they didn't know if they were doing a good job or not. B, there was not really any incentive, or you really didn't know how to incentivize them without measurement. But and C, just measuring alone, even if you don't do anything, when somebody knows they're being measured, it increases their awareness and productivity. And so you begin to tie that kind of information together for the person sweeping the floor, if you have such a person, so they understand how what they do impacts the whole value of the company. And that's a game changer when you get people on the front line of whatever your company does, at all levels, to be all rowing in the same direction. That's a huge uh, it provides a huge increase in value. And I've kind of bumped around to a couple of different things. I think the other big thing for us was communication. Waste in communication is huge, and it's not just in a small company. In all companies, it can be huge. And so the framework really helps you categorize and systematize how you communicate together. So you have times where you where you might normally just stick your head in somebody's office, interrupt them, or call them and interrupt them and say, hey, what do you think about so and so? Well, that person may be right in the middle of something extremely detailed, and now they have to change their attention, pay attention to you, and it's not even that urgent. And so the framework really helps you categorize those kinds of things, identify things and how important they are, and then organize how communication happens. And it's hard to conceive of how much wasted time there was with that kind of interruption in communication. So that was another very, very huge thing. And I guess lastly, um, I would say, the more of the process and systems, recognizing where those things need to improve and get more clear, so that you are doing something the same way every time. And whether it's Pat doing it or Walter doing it, we know it's gonna come out the same way with the same level of quality. And I think those are some big things that stick out for me.
Hey, Dave. So, if the when you implement things like a scorecard for employees, what was their response? Was it a situation where if you're a good employee, you embraced it, and if you're not, you quit, or how did it work out?
Well, I think you obviously want to be strategic about it, and you also want to include the employees, because they're going to actually, sometimes they're going to be the best, and many times they're going to be the best source for helping you understand what they need to be doing to get good results. And so they're really the ones providing the information. So in that process, they're they're giving their buy-in because they become invested in the process. And yes, it highlights maybe the folks that are a little weaker, and it becomes more clear to you as a manager or leader, because all the other employees already know, right? They already know that Mary over here, gosh, she doesn't seem to do as much as we do, and that causes strife or stress, and people put up with it. But just because nobody talks about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And all this does, this process gives awareness and visibility to things that are already there. So then you have the opportunity to manage those employees properly in a way that you didn't have before, whether they need an improvement program, maybe they're not in the right role, or they don't, they just don't have the skill to really do what you're asking them to do.
Yeah. And then does this scorecard then become part of financial incentives for them, or how did that part?
Yeah, I don't think there's any uh, guidance or rules on how you have to use this information. That's really up to each individual company. For us, it was really, starting out at the high level. What, how many new clients did we get this month? Things that we knew were going to result in the kind of financial results we wanted. Um, so more of a high level leadership team view, and then the we went through the process of cascading the same concept down to each individual area of the company and department. And so in terms of how you use the information, I think EOS and in book traction, they use this idea that, hey, if you're the owner or the leader of a company, and you're on an island somewhere, and you want to immediately know the pulse, the health of the company, that's kind of the starting point. So what information do I need at a glance to know that my company's okay and doing okay? So you kind of start there, um, and then you cascade that down to the individual level, and how you use that data is really going to be at the discretion of leadership.
Yeah, one of the reasons we think EOS is not just viable, a very effective system is our conviction about exposing reality, being systematic, and how to execute strategy over time, you need to continually and systematically expose reality about what's going on in every aspect of the business. And I think that that's what one of the great benefits, isn't it, of this system, implemented and then sustained over time, is that it is indeed a system that exposes reality so that you know how what's going to need to be executed on, what needs to be changed, what needs to be strengthened, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's a great phrase. I haven't used that before, but I love that, exposing reality, because that's exactly what happens. And that's where you have to be a strong leader, because you can't hide once reality is exposed. You have to do something about it, or you don't, and then you have worse problems.
Yeah, right. Okay. What about this question? And then as we wrap up, Dave, right sized, the system is robust, the process is robust. Depending on the situation, the company, the size of the company, number of employees, so on and so forth, would you say that there's going to be a need often or at all for right sizing the system to the business?
Certainly, there are occasions where you know a very small company is going to implement aspects of the framework differently than a larger company. There are um, there are, I think, things that are negotiable in how, I think of it this way. I'm not sure all people who do EOS implementations think of it this way, but there are going to be things that you see as a company. Well, I think it really is going to work best for us to go this way, and I'm going to assume that the business owner is going to be right about that because they know their business the best. But in terms of, I think the system it certainly allows for you to be able to customize it in a way that's going to be right for your company's size.
Hmm. Okay, good. Walter, any last questions from you?
No, this has been really interesting. I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed it. It's been because I'm really, I was always a tax guy, so this is really an introduction to me of
Hmm.
EOS. It sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, Dave, as we wrap up here, a few things. Um, any last words of wisdom regarding EOS? Anything that you'd like to promote today? And then, if you'd like to provide your contact information for anybody who would like to talk to you.
Yeah, sure. I guess, as far as my final thoughts and based on my experience, I think it's easy as a business owner to focus on um, just the day-to-day issues around running the business, and just making a profit for this month, and when we'll worry about the next month, and so on and so forth. It can be so easy to overlook how important it is to see the business itself as an investment, and subsequently how important it is to work on the business and not just in the business. um, I think implementing EOS um, helps really change that focus for an owner to realize how important that is. And it itself is an investment of time and money. However, the ROI I've experienced, as well as hundreds of other people, is truly amazing. Um, so, I think I think seeing your business itself as an investment, just like you do your 401k and other things, really can change your perspective and make you realize how important it is to take good care of that and work on it. In terms of my what I do these days is I do help businesses in that area, whether it's helping them implement the system, understand what it takes, going through the process to implement it, really walking along side by side with the leader or leaders to do that and facilitate that, or even acting as a fractional COO who can help at whether it's a long term or a short term, helping them uh, integrate the system into their day-to-day lives, and at some point hand that off to somebody else when they're ready. So those are the kind of areas that I focus on.
Yep, good. And how about contact information?
Contact info, right? Well, you can contact me at my email, dave.lokos at exitwelladvisors.com, and my last name is Lokos. And you can also call me anytime, 240-687-8716.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dave. Great information from an experienced guy. Uh, Listeners, if you want help in maximizing the value of your business or planning for your eventual exit, you can contact us at Ennis Legacy Partners through our website at ennislp.com or ExitReadiness.com. Thank you for listening as always. And if you've benefited from today's episode, please consider liking and sharing it on social media and hit that subscribe button, please. Until next time on the Exit Readiness Podcast, this is Pat Ennis and Walter Dial signing off.